Decentralized social media project Nostr's Damus getting listed on Apple's App Store. Former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey has donated to Nostr and promoted the open protocol that aspires to create a censorship-resistant global social network. Emily has been watching this development. This app is getting a lot of buzz. What's going on, Em?
Yeah, so as you said, this is getting a lot of buzz. As of this morning, it was in the top 10 in the social networking category on the App Store. Jack was tweeting yesterday about how it was in the top 200 of all free apps. You know, for something that is relatively new, obviously that's a strong showing. This is just the beginning. Whether it's going to keep this traction is an open question. But I think, you know, the real point here and the real interesting thing here is what is the problem that this is trying to solve. So clearly this is emerging as a kind of Twitter alternative. And in fact, if you look at the GitHub page, they sort of discuss all the reasons why this is superior to Twitter. I think one of the main reasons is it's supposed to be censorship resistant. So there can be no banning, no shadow banning, you know, no government ostensibly can take it down. That's kind of the idea behind this. As we know, a lot of people are very frustrated with Twitter and with Elon Musk, you know, this kind of very centralized sort of authority figure at the helm of its so-called decentralized network. So yeah, I think that's why this is kind of gaining popularity. Interestingly, you know, just anecdotally, I noticed that there's quite a lot of Chinese users on this app, and I'd heard that it's quite popular in China, which is quite interesting. That could also be sometimes an early indicator of the popularity of a certain product. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. You know, of course, with all these social networks, it's very the recipe for success is very simple. It's network effects. So if for this to succeed, a lot of people have to use it. That we do not know. We don't know yet if that will be the case. There's always a lot of people coming onto a new app. Whether or not they're going to stay there is an open question. A lot of these decentralized social networks have not succeeded in the past for precisely that reason, because, you know, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, I mean, they just have a lot of market share, and it's hard to get everybody to move from one thing to another.
And yet it doesn't have a company it doesn't have a company ownership yet. It found its way onto these apps. I mean, that must have been a big deal if for the likes of Apple and Google to say, yeah, sure, you could be on our phones, even though you're not singularly owned. Is that correct? I mean, this is sort of... Yeah. I mean, for better or worse, like, there's no obvious personality behind this. And, you know, it did take some time to get onto the App Store. Apparently that was a bit of a tension, you know, because the App Store has certain requirements and it didn't get on immediately. So I think there was a lot of fanfare when it finally did. But yeah, I mean, there's nobody really to like sort of call to complain. There's no sort of customer service. There's no central server. I mean, that's kind of the idea, right? This is sort of supposed to mimic the structure of Bitcoin itself, where there's no central authority. But of course, that raises the question of what happens with content that is flagrantly illegal, that is unethical. I mean, is there really no way to take it down? It's raising a lot of questions that I think we're going to, I don't think there are answers to those yet.
Okay, so that's what I was actually wanting to get into. Because that's the problem with decentralized social media. Well, you know, there could be a lot of offensive content that gets posted in terms of violence, offensive material, etc., with no mediator mediating that. You know, there are some ethical problems that can arise. In your experience, just playing around the app, what have you experienced?
Yeah. So again, very early days, but in my experience, like it's very, I mean, I don't think it's very easy to remove content at all, even at a user level. But yeah, Christine, I mean, I feel like you're raising like the question here, and there really are no answers. And I think this is something that comes up a lot with blockchain technology, is that everyone's like, it's immutable, it's great, things stay there forever, without really thinking about how that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, obviously there's sort of the illegal question, there's the unethical question, there's the causing danger to others question. But even on just a personal level, I mean, I can just say I don't love the idea of having some content about me just being utterly unable to remove forever, right? I mean, is that necessarily a good thing? And I don't think, like, I'm not sure people are totally thinking this through yet. Yeah, or I mean, it's also kind of funny because so many people are like advocating for edit buttons and being able to revise their content. And this is kind of the opposite idea. This is like, you know, there's no way to take this down. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions going forward. I mean, first we have to see if this actually gains traction, if people actually want to use it. And that's going to have a lot to do with the user experience. But that I think is going to be the next question, which is like, be careful what you wish for, right? You know, people are saying, okay, we want something where content can never be taken down. Do they really want that? I think we're going to see if that's true or not.
Strangely, it's
we're
called
seeing a
Amethyst
lot.
on Android. Just a note there. And most implementations of Nostr supports payments over Bitcoin's Lightning Network. How does Nostr work with Bitcoin?
Yeah, so again, early days, but for example, yesterday, or I don't know when he tweeted it, but Jack at some point put out a message saying like, here, just what you can do. This is kind of a funny thing that was happening in the early stages of the app, was that people were sending basically like Lightning invoices, and it was like, okay, just send me some money. And we're talking about, change, like not a lot of money, basically, $1 or less. And then other people were sending it, to them. So ostensibly this is supposed to be easily integrated for tipping, like you can tip other users. But I did see people playing around with the payment function on the app. It does seem to integrate pretty smoothly with Lightning. We just don't know exactly yet, like what the main function of payments will be.
Wasn't Jack the one that talked Elon Musk into buying Twitter? I mean, that's kind of like a jerk move. Like, hey, spend $40 billion on this thing, and then here's a competitor to it. You should all go on now.
Well, that's a really good point, because on the GitHub page, there's literally a whole section that is called the problem with Twitter. And so this is really, really explicitly positioning itself as a Twitter alternative. Some of the things it lists are Twitter has ads, Twitter uses bizarre techniques to keep you addicted, Twitter doesn't show an actual historical feed from people you follow, Twitter bans people, Twitter shadow bans people, Twitter has a lot of spam. That's what it says on the GitHub. So this is supposedly an alternative to that. Again, raises some more questions that it answers. For example, like, I'm not sure why this would prevent spam, but that's what it claims to be able to do.